Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman who I had the pleasure of connecting with a little bit over a month ago, actually, and we kind of expressed a mutual interest about her sharing her story and possibly being a guest on the show. We had some conversation and made it happen, and she so graciously accepted the invite to be a guest with us today. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an author, but most importantly, she's a woman of God. And again, has taken time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us a little while to share a little bit of her story, her journey, with the hopes of inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting those of us, specifically in the area when it comes to dealing with challenges and the adversities of life, the storms that come our way, kind of giving us a more healthy and a broader perspective of how we should approach such moments. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you my guest this evening, Dr. Angela Carswell. Angela, thank you so much for being with us on the show today.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share with your audience.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to kind of give a little intro about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our listeners a taste of who is Dr. Angela Carswell.
Well, I'm gonna try and keep this brief because as you get up in age, there's so many stories that you can tell. So, I was raised primarily by my mom. My mom has always been there. My brother's always been there, and so we lived in California. Then had the opportunity to, through her marriage, go to Saudi Arabia. So I was raised in middle school overseas, and that was just full of adventure. At an early age, you get to see people in different cultures, so there's a lot of acceptance of different cultures and how people do things and so forth. So in that regard, I'm very open-minded, and I'm thankful for that whole journey. When we decided to come back, my parents decided to come back. We came back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and so my traveling kind of had to halt, and I was in the sleepy South. Went to college here at UTC, and I didn't. I had my perspective is generally positive. So I do feel like I had a great, upbringing, a great foundation. My mom is, like I said, she's like many of our moms. She's just kind of been the rock of the family. Um, and, seeing her go through some adversities with abuse and abuse in my household, those things I know can cause a lot of trauma to people, a lot of apprehension about relationships, a lot of apprehension about, um, just do I really want to be invested in a relationship with people? When, those types of things just color how we see relationships. So, coming out of that, an abusive household, I feel like I had a lot of confidence though. And I base a lot of that just on, trial and error and outcomes. Um, one About 25% of women have physical abuse, and about 33% have sexual abuse of some kind. So when you grow up in a house with kind of varieties of different abuses, um, you have to kind of deal with that in a way that hopefully is not as impactful as it could be. And in my particular story, because I had confidence, I knew at a young age that I had a voice. And so I think that learning that at an early age has really impacted my life. My husband probably would say it's probably not been for the best, but a young girl having a voice is an awesome responsibility, and it's just an awesome thing to bring out in the world because there are so many situations and times where women don't. Um, so um, so yeah, so growing up into womanhood, I got married at a young age. Well, not young, but 23. I guess is young by today's standards. Had a started a family, accepted all those responsibilities, and just kind of moved on. Not allowing it to kind of saddle me with this is my life. Um, and so for that, I'm thankful that I have been able to give grace to others, and I think that's one of the things that kind of allows me to continue to just pick up and keep moving.
Awesome, awesome, and I
Um,
appreciate you sharing what you've shared so far. I mean, this is really powerful. Powerful stuff. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm kind of taking it all in, just trying to imagine this life of, being out of the country, living. You said Saudi Arabia, and then having then switching gears and being in Tennessee is like such a big swing of lifestyles. I'm just trying to kind of processing all of that. I mean, that had to be I guess for lack of a better word, an exciting adventure, and at the same time, there's some challenges and things that kind of come along with that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And actually I want to build on that a little
Um,
bit more if we can.
mhm.
Because when it comes to telling our stories, and I say this all the time, when it comes to telling our stories and our journeys, it's really important. I believe it's really important for us to kind of tap back into where it all starts. Because I believe it kind of sets the stage for what happens later to us in life and how we ultimately identify what our purpose is going to be. What that walk is going to look like. And a lot of times when we're going through the things that we go through early on, we don't really know, why we're going through what we're going through and what sense of it all that it's going to make. But ultimately, as you get older and you start to reflect back, you kind of put the pieces together and it starts to make sense like, oh, that's why I had to go through that. That's why I had to experience what I had to experience because it's allowed me to prepare myself for what I'm doing right now. So with that said, I do want to kind of tap in a little bit more about what it was like for you growing up. I mean, kind of share a little bit about the experience when you were living out of the country. Kind of, again, fond memories that you have about that, and then what that transition was like coming in back into the States and having to adjust with obviously such a drastic difference in environment. Kind of share with us a little bit more about those fond memories and that experience in itself.
Sure. We had the opportunity to move because my dad had accepted a job at an oil company. So when you think about oil company in Saudi Arabia, you just think about the current day Dubai and just like, woo, it's amazing. Well, in the 80s, it wasn't that way. Let me just put that out there. It was a compound type situation, and so we had school. It was probably most similar to an army base. So we had American schools, we had American homes, we had cars and commissary and all that. And so it allowed us, there were other families there, Black families that we would, get together and have game nights and just a very coming out of California into a compound with us wanting to connect with people like us. We were able to form a really tight bond with some of those other families, and our neighbors were Black. Um, and so it was a very protective type of space. Having left and grown up in near Compton, California. So us, being outside and catching the bus by ourselves and things like that would have never happened in the 80s, the mid 80s in California. So we were very fortunate, very blessed in that regard. It allowed us to do a lot of traveling, um, Italy, Spain, just all over the world, and just seeing people in different um, situations and cultures and environments and homes, and you get a sense of understanding that people are people, and you kind of have to parse um, each person individually and see their spirit for what it is in any environment. Like nobody's going to be perfect, but if you can look at someone, a Muslim, Hindu, white, black, it doesn't matter. If you can look at a person's spirit and see them for how God sees them or how they intend to be, flaws and all, I think that's a great connector for people. So just being able to travel at a young age and see a lot of things at a young age, um, even though, our home life was our home life. And I'm not to say that our home life was tragic at any point in time, but if anybody's ever grown up with a parent who deals with alcoholism or anything, everything can be fine for months. Like you are living in a perfect life until the day they drink too much. Um, and so, but again, even in that, I learned, and I'm thankful for this perspective, to see people and meet them where they are.
Mm,
Um, and, they may not, people aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is. But understanding that, there are good times. There are times where we have been given grace and times that we've given grace, and that those times have made all the difference.
I love that.
So growing up, I just really have been thankful for, my stepdad for taking us on that great journey, for my mom being an adventurer at heart, from a really small town in Alabama. We went to visit last summer. They still don't have asphalt on that road, but, she's traveled the world, and it's just a testament to um, just her um, just ability to seize the day and the blessings that God has for her.
Love that. Love that.
So,
Especially just your approach to, especially when we think about like the times that we're in right now, the climate of the world right now. So to hear you talk about, the value that you experience at a young age and meeting people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and just kind of accepting people for who they are and not necessarily getting caught up in, other, insignificant particulars to where you start passing judgments or feeling like I'm better than this person or that person. Just accepting people for who they are, understanding that we all have flaws, but that we all are deserving of respect and to be treated nice and all of those kind of things. And it just seems like we somehow lost a little bit of that as the years have gone on. I mean, you and I are very close in age. And so, you can remember the time of when people just, were more of a community with one another. They just kind of, there was just a respect. Even if you had disagreements, the way we handled disagreements, the way we handled seeing things from a different perspective is like night and day. The things that we might have a little brief argument on or even get into a little tussle about. Now you fast forward to today, especially with young people, they're out here killing one another, or even as adults, we're saying hateful things about one another and just being mean just to be mean. So it's refreshing to hear your perspective as to having that broad experience that you had, even dealing with the midst of some things that were going on in your home. You just to have that still have that way about you. I think it speaks volumes about your character, and it kind of sets the stage, as I said earlier, about how it leads to what you're doing today, and your approach to the works that you do today. I don't know if you paid attention to the title of our show for this evening, but it's pathway to purpose, and this you're kind of showing your pathway leading up to what it is that God is lining up for you to do, how he's planning to use you, all those experiences, even the ones that were a little bit challenging or complicated, if you will. They've all been kind of culminated together so you can experience not only that you can draw from those experiences, but that you can use them to be a blessing to other people in the works that you're doing. So appreciate you sharing that about this introductory journey, which is why I like to have that part of the conversation. So with that said, as you stated, we go through our childhood, we have our experiences, some good, some not so good, some challenging, if you will. And as we enter into adulthood, obviously those experiences become more broad. And, along the way, we encounter some storms that can get a little bit even more intense as we get older. And sometimes so much so that some of these storms that we run up against are storms that we question, like, how am I going to get through this? I mean, I'm usually good at maneuvering and making my way through challenges and moments of adversity here and there. But every now and then we get hit with something that we don't have an answer for. That, like I say all the time, we can't throw some money at it and make it go away. We can't make a phone call and make it go away. It's heavy. It's very weighty. We're anxious. We're stressing. We're worried, and we don't see a way out. Um, I'm curious to know from you though, if you would share with us a time where you actually felt that way, that you were going through something in life that had you feeling that way. Obviously, you're here today, so we can trust that God worked things out and made a way for you to have that breakthrough, whatever that situation was. But maybe at the time you had some doubts, you had some fears, you had some concerns. So if you would kind of walk us through what that situation looked like for you that you're going to share with us, and what was the turning point where you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that situation?
Of course, of course. Great question. And, as I said, I married at 23. I have two children. I just shudder to tell you how old they are. One's 28 and one's 25. So, being married to their dad for 15 years, and then, feeling pretty confident. I went to school. I, managed a household. Had we went on family vacations. We didn't argue. We, had discussions, this, and that, and the third. And it's like, how do you go from that to having someone tell you that, like, yeah, I just don't want to be married anymore.
Mm,
And you're like, it, the lightest way to say it is it just knocks the wind out of you. And I'm not sure if we didn't talk at all about, your background or anything, but, if you either had parents who were divorced or have been through a divorce, especially when it's an amicable situation,
hmm
I feel is very different. Had I had a situation where my husband was abusive, then I'd be like, whew, shoo, I got out of that. That's a blessing to get out of it. And you can easily, quickly see it that way. But in an amicable situation, you really have to fight the urge to change your perspective into being either bitter, resentful. There's so many angry feelings. There's so many feelings that you can feel when you were actually in a pretty good marriage where people are like, really? You getting a divorce, girl? you know, and you're like, yeah, he changed his mind about what he wanted. And that's kind of what I had to come to. And so, um, it left me in a place where I was heartbroken, especially since, I did feel like we had a very stable home and that we were making progress and that there was respect there and all these other things. So, initially, when things come that are unexpected, um, it does knock you off your feet. And, people, that's a common occurrence these days, with relationships going awry, with, companies laying off unexpectedly, with home prices being where they are and eviction notices. Things are happening probably at a higher rate of experience than ever that I would imagine ever before, just because of the economy of scale um, that we deal with. So, when you look at the occurrence of suicide and um, people's very high reluctance to get into relationships, all of those things are coping mechanisms that are, I don't want to sound cavalier, but they're choices. They're coping mechanisms for survival in uncertain times. So sure, I felt all of those things, all of those things. And, having a mom who had also been through similar things, you're like, okay, I'm going to get through it. And a friend of mine was just like, well, a very good friend of mine told me two things. She told me one, this is at the time I was 37. Yeah, 30, 37, 38. And so she was like, I get it, but this is an event and you'll get past it. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know what you mean. This is terrible. And it sounded very minimizing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's true. We're designed to, there was a word I was thinking about earlier today. Um, we're designed to prosper, and we're designed to go through challenges. We're designed to go through doubt. All of these things happen um, in a way that if we're able and we can listen to our internal spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever um, informs your decision and intuition that you lean towards. We're designed to go through these things so that we can rely on those things, so that we can build confidence in other areas, and so that we can be faithful to what those things are. Um, so it was very tumultuous to me. And, my perspective I shared with you earlier, about just understanding people and accepting people. I had to weigh heavily on that, because as a mom, we all have choices. I'm just going to be honest. We can be like, you know what? You want to go, you go. But, and minimize the time that they spend with their children. The judiciary has very strong leanings towards, moms and whatever. But is that the type of mom that I want it to be? And is that the type of wife I want it to be? Even as an ex-wife, is that the type of wife and character that I wanted to have? And so we were able to, divorce amicably. If I had a flat tire, today I could probably call and be like, hey, help me out. And all of us have seen those memes on Facebook, like your ex is on the side of the road, their car is on fire. What do you do? Spit on
Right.
them, throw gas on it, but and people take that in jest, and whenever I see those, I'm just like, allowing your spirit to run free like that is a dangerous thing. So, it takes some discipline. It takes some discipline, and it takes really understanding who you are to actually choose well, not just for you, because I'm heartbroken either way. But my kids now, like I have to set a foundation where they see that they did come from a place of love. That even though we're not together, there's still a respect. And you can still respect people and make decisions for their benefit, even if you're not together. And that was a conversation I ended up having with my son years later. It's like, you broke up with this girl. If you ever loved her, you're still responsible to protect her. If you ever loved her, that's your job. And, having having witnessed that, he knew what that meant. So, with the legacy of divorce, it being what it is in our culture, like we have to be very intentional about how we approach these things with our children, because people don't like it. It's me, I'm going through this divorce, but how we go through that lays a foundation to decide how they're going to accept relationships. And that's why I feel like we have so many 30-year-olds now, like, I don't want to get married. 25, oh no. It's just a rampant thing where no, it's just a conversation. Why get married? What's the benefit? Why would I do that? And I feel like, as a parent, like that's my job. My job as a parent is not to raise children. My job as a parent is to raise adults who will also find a mate, have a family, and build legacy. That's my job as a parent. And if I go through a divorce and I'm unhinged, it's not going to speak well to how my children accept or reject relationships in their future. So I got out of it with a lot of reading. I continue to just be honest with myself. The pain that I was feeling, the aggravation that I was feeling, but also the joy in knowing that I would be okay and that my children would be okay. And that kind of was the impetus for me getting through it, is just knowing that I'm making the right decisions for them. And whatever I have, I'm weighing that so that they will come out of it okay. And so all things work together for those who, so yeah. So I hope I answer the question.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So,
I just want
yeah,
to make sure I wasn't interrupting you.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
No, I was just
yeah.
saying.
So it's, the challenge of divorce and the reading and the meditation and just not allowing my spirit to fall into negativity based on a event, I think, is what allowed me to come out of it quickly and without needing external therapy, and not and being a light to not only myself but to my children about relationships. Always keeping that same spirit of love throughout these traumatic situations, as much as we can. I think went a long way for me.
It's awesome. I guess, again, first off, thank you for your transparency and sharing that. It's never easy to play back going through a divorce. I have been divorced before myself, and when you talk about that feeling of just sort of like the wind getting knocked out of you, that's probably one of many ways that you can describe it. Oftentimes in a joking way, but being serious at the same time. Tell people, when you go through a divorce, it's not like, your traditional, if you will, your traditional boyfriend girlfriend relationships where you say, I break up with you, I quit you. It hits different, and especially when you make such a monumental lifetime decision, thinking that everything is supposed to be a forever event as you stand, taking your vows, and that's what you're desiring to have, and then you kind of get, like you said, kind of get the wind knocked out of you. Especially in your case, obviously, it's a little bit unique in the sense that you said everything appeared to be going well. I mean, I wasn't being abused, I wasn't being mistreated. Life is good, life is rolling along just fine. It looks like everything is good, and then I get hit, out of nowhere with this. Oh, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, where does that come from? And you begin to you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Is there something that you're not telling me? All of those, I'm sure all of those thoughts, all of those emotions were running through you. But the one thing that I do appreciate about what you stated, in talking about this divorce experience, was the fact that you didn't make it just be about you. You had your kids at the forefront of it all, thinking, how is this going to impact them, and thinking of it from the standpoint of how they respond to it is going to be a direct reflection of how I respond to it, how I handle it. So I appreciate the fact that you and their dad, made a decision to, like you said, keep those lines open where there was still the respect there. There was still an opportunity for a relationship between them to exist versus taking that route that we unfortunately see from time to time where, you know, you know, the mother and father break up, or whether they were married or not, there's kids involved. And then you have one or both spouses using the kids as sort of, tools, if you will, to harm the other, whether it's, you can't see your kids, or,
Mhm.
or just constantly arguing and constantly being bitter and angry and all of those things. And it's okay for you to have that moment of processing how you're feeling. I mean, those are just natural human emotions, but you just can't stay stuck there. And as you were describing your
Yeah.
story here, I love the fact that you said, you know what, my spirit, I knew in my spirit that it couldn't stay in this negative space. I couldn't stay here. That I had to understand that this was an event that happened. It was unfortunate. You weren't trying to minimize it. It's unfortunate that it took place. I'm hurt by it. I'm disappointed, but I'm also reflecting on the fact that I still have joy in my life. I still have breath in my body. I still have a roof over my head. I still have beautiful kids. I still have a future. I wasn't expecting this storm, this bump in the road to happen, but I'm still here and I'm going to be okay. And I think that's the mindset that we all have to have, you know, in any moment of adversity, whether we're talking about divorce or loss of job or all of those things. This is the way that God wants us to approach such challenges, that, he understands that, yeah, you're going to feel some kind of way about it. We might even be mad at him directly. But in the end, if we're trusting and believing and knowing that, in spite of what we might be going through, that there is somebody out there. And in this case, I'm speaking of, we got God out there, that he loves us unconditionally. He still wants nothing but the best for you. He knows that you're hurting. He knows that you don't understand everything that's going on, but that there is still hope for tomorrow. There's still a reason to have joy. There's still a reason for you to not stay, down in the dumps and depressed and feeling like your world is all over. But that, yeah, there's still much to live for. And that this is going to be one of many experiences that you're going to go through in life, that as time goes on, there are going to be things that you're going to be able to glean and draw from that experience that's going to be of benefit to you, down the road. So, I just love your overall approach to handling what is otherwise a very sensitive and heart wrenching, gut wrenching, if you will, type of situation. I wouldn't wish divorce on my worst enemy, because it's not an enjoyable experience. But it is good to know that you all were able to do it in a peaceful manner. It was, without all of the negativity, if you will. And you didn't say this word, but your process speaks to it. Is that as you went through it the way that you went through it, it was also your way of showing forgiveness. It kind of goes back to what you said earlier
Mhm.
about how everybody's not perfect. We all fall short. We all make mistakes. In doing it the way that you did it was your way of showing forgiveness to him for what you felt was, a wrong that was committed against you and against your family, which in turn allowed you to heal. It kind of kicked in that healing process for you, so you could begin to, okay, let me dust myself off. Let me wipe these tears away. I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm not in a good space right now, but I'm gonna be okay. That forgiveness piece is so critical to ignite that healing. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you condone the behavior, that you accept the wrong, that you accept the misstep or what have you. You're not saying that you're cool with it. You're just saying that I'm not going to hold it against that person, and I'm not going to hold it against me. I'm not going to allow that event to stop me from living, from stopping me from enjoying life and what it has in store for me. So just hearing you talk about this is just
Yeah.
really refreshing in terms of your approach to it all. So that's
Yeah.
that's
One
that's
thing that I think we forget, is, you know, um, God is a God of redemption. And so we normally think of that just in certain times of the year. He is redeemed,
mm,
but we are also, and so a lot of times people do make them, they make I'm not going to call it a mistake. They make a choice. I don't want this anymore. I want something else. And you can slap them with a noose and say forget it, or you can allow them the space to redeem themselves. And that may take on different forms. Maybe sometimes we have parents. I've seen parents that were terrible parents, but great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have time for their kids, but their grandkids, they will just love on them and make time and churn ice cream from scratch, for the grandkids. And that is redemption, for healing that relationship, or that circle of relationships. And so it's, understanding that I didn't necessarily make a wrong choice. He's still a good dad. He's still a good person. And nothing like, there's nothing like going on to see your person love someone else. And so that's a whole nother type of death and healing. If situations are tumultuous, you'd be like, I don't care, whatever. But when two people respect each other and you allow them to leave with forgiveness, there's a different type of relationship and a different type of redemption for even his relationship with them, because it's allowed to renew itself and raise itself to a different level, because the effort and the intentionality is very different when people are not in the home. And so, can they see it? Can the children see that he's making this effort, he's doing these things or whatever? And even redemptive for myself. Like I have to, a lot of people, one of the things I hate in life is, somebody's losing. Well, they cheated. Like, it's just one of those comments that people kind of say offhandedly,
Mm-hmm.
whether they have proof or not, but what that does, it mitigates the effort that they've been taking at their craft. And it also robs me of growth of what I could be doing or could be focusing on, because I'm discarding and dismissing the fact that I lost fair and square, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that in divorce too. Is they just like, oh, he's this, he's that, and he's the other. You can do that, but you're missing out on an opportunity for growth for yourself. And if you ever want to grow in a new relationship and a better relationship, or a more unified relationship, you have to look within at some point to see, what did I do? What could I have done differently? What didn't I know to do? Because, married at, it doesn't even matter how old you are when you're married, because you haven't done it before. So it's not like you can have prior experience.
Right.
So, we don't know. And if you were raised how we were raised, and I think most of us are raised, is our parents didn't teach us about relationships. We saw the relationship we were in, or they were in. We grew up with it. You get to a certain age and you're able to see your parents a little bit different as adults and individuals. And you're like, okay. But that still isn't teaching you about relationships or marriage. So then you find somebody, even in the church, there's very few sermons about what is a good husband. What does that mean? What does a man how does he move in Christ? How does he move on his job? How does he move in his household and finances if he's ready to be a husband? And the same for women. We just don't have those conversations, either in the home. We get some of our ethos from church or reading. Where's the material that prepares us? And I'm looking at my mom knowing she's amazing. My mom graduated from college at 50. after she had traveled, after she had come home, after we had graduated from high school, after we had graduated from college, then then she went to college. And so, I literally had my, granddaughter, well, her granddaughter, we were at my mom's graduation. But it was something that was important to her. So many priorities were there. Always always committed to giving to the church, always, is the aunt that my cousins still call all the time just to talk and shoot the breeze. But did she talk about how to be a wife?
Mm.
We don't do that. That's not a conversation we have. And men are the same as far as I know. I mean, I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm not a son and, whatever, but, reflect on your own. Like, how did you learn with your first marriage? How did you learn how to be married? How did you learn to prepare to be married?
exactly. Especially if you're like we say from the son's perspective, unfortunately, especially when you think about black sons, how many are growing up in homes where that black father is not even present? What is the model that they get to see? Where's the mentor at? Who is the person that they are modeling after that says, you know what, I want to be like that. I see something in this individual, that this character, this integrity, this way of being, a lot of us, unfortunately, when I think about all my male friends coming up, many of us didn't have our dads around, either didn't know who they were or that we knew who they were, but they just weren't actively involved in our life. So then you're left with mom trying to teach you how to be a man, and not to say that moms can't, contribute in that cause up to a point, but then there's just some things that a young man needs to
Right,
learn from a man. It's just because
right.
he's a man,
And
you
even
know.
if, but even when, and I fancy myself a little bit of just a hood anthropologist. Okay. When you look at other cultures, the Indian culture, Asian culture, Arab culture, African culture, they all have rites of passages for women and men. They all are very invested in who their sons and daughters marry. Very invested. They all have conversations about how it is that you become a wife, how it is that you become a husband, what the expectations are for your family, what the expectations are for your tribe, what the expectations are for your family business and finances. All four of those cultures that I named have specific conversations about that, and they pass down that from generation to generation. We don't have that.
No.
Even if you got Clarence and um, the Huxtables, Felicia Rashad, I can't remember her, Claire.
There. Mm-hmm.
Even if you have the Huxtables, do we have those conversations?
Right.
In the most perfect of situations, it's just not something that we did. And I think things are changing now. Conversations and podcasts like yours and others um, are starting to like have those conversations. Um, and I'm thankful because we have to turn this ship around. We have to turn this ship around. There's no When we talk about generational wealth, we think about, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna leave them my house, or I've got this business and I'm gonna send them to college and these things. But other dynasties and other eras, emotional wealth is generational wealth. How you pass down, how you're able to assimilate and have a wife and a family. People don't grow wealth. Every millionaire has a wife. They had a wife when they grew their money. They had support. They had someone who raised their children so that they could focus. They had someone who encouraged them. They encouraged each other. There is such a wealth in our relationship. And at this point, we have a relationship wealth gap. that is, really hindering the progress of young people. A young person can't have an apartment back like they could in the 90s. You can't get a job and get an apartment and a car and insurance and be fine and date somebody. Not these days. Rent is too high. Rent is too high for that. So we all have to start making some solid pairings with people who have a depth of self-awareness of what they have and what they need, and finding someone who understands what they have and what they need, and how can we make this work and enjoy each other along the way.
Exactly.
So that, yeah. So that is kind of, I don't know how we got there.
No,
I think I might have jumped.
No, I'm glad we
Up
got
the
there
railroad a little
because
bit.
I'm glad we got there because again, it goes back to we're in the segment of the show where we're talking about that trying time, that challenging time, and for you, it was this divorce that you didn't see coming, that you got totally blindsided from. But remember what I was saying earlier about, that's what we have to understand about the storms. Instead of, we can't just allow that storm to just be a negative event only. You got to understand that there's a reason that you're going through it. There's something that you're supposed to draw out of that. And look at just the dialogue that we've been having for the last 10, 15 minutes about the importance of understanding what does it truly mean to be a good husband, a good wife? What does it truly mean when we talk about not only generational wealth, but emotional wealth, and and just where are you in your headspace? All of those things matter when you think about the survival of a marriage. It's just not, oh, she's cute, he's cute, let's get together and it's gonna happen. There's more to it. Is God involved in it? That's definitely always at the forefront. If he's not in it, then you got two flawed people trying to survive on their own, imperfect individuals with a whole bunch of baggage that they brought into the marriage, trying to figure out how to coexist. That's hard to do if God's not in it. And then understanding, what was that preparation process like for them? What was their upbringing like? What do they really understand about all of this? And how can we be of support, not only to one another, but where's that support circle around us, family and friends who are there to cheer us on, to encourage us, to be there when they see that we acting out of order, that they'll pull our coat and, and be like, look, you out of pocket for this. Let me talk to you so you don't mess up your thing, Joe. Let me talk to you, Angela, so you don't mess up your thing. Where's that at? Because that's a marriage survives. It's the community of it all. The circle of people that truly want to see this thing work, to see it, to last a lifetime, to truly get to that point of the vows, to death do you part, not till I don't feel like doing it no more. Not till we have one argument and then we just ready to throw in the towel. We got to break those cycles, but we can't break them if we don't have that community, if we don't have that preparation, if we don't understand the complexity of the total package of what it takes to make it, not just two people who look good together and they both got jobs and they look like they're gonna be all right. That's not gonna work. So because marriage
we look good on the selfies together.
Yeah, we cute, we rocking, and we hit, we enter into rooms and everybody is wow, boss. You even said yourself when you announced that you were getting divorced, people are like, what? Because they had this impression about, they had this vision that everything was flawless and perfect in the marriage, and it's just, no marriage is. It's a battle. It's a challenge. It's a journey. It's work. And if you don't know what it's going to take, if you're not committed to that, it's going to be really, really hard for that thing to survive. So it's, to my listeners, if you're thinking about getting married, take all of those things into consideration. Don't automatically choose not to get married just because you think it's going to be hard or whatever. That shouldn't be, like you said earlier, like we got a lot of young people like, why should I bother? Because unfortunately, a lot of the young people today, they don't want to do anything that requires, if it looks like it's going to be a little hard, it's a little challenging. I don't want that. I want it easy. I want it to.
I don't know if it's that.
You see a lot of that, but then at the same time,
but the
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. But at the same time, you also see as you said earlier, you kind of see if all that they know or all that they're seeing is that marriages are not working, then they don't see the benefit in it. They're like, well, why do I want to be with that if all we're going to do is 6 months later we ain't going to be together, and then I'm gonna have to split up my assets, and then if there's a kid involved, I got to worry about paying some child support. They don't see the value and the benefit anymore about what it is to even be married. And again, that goes back to the teaching part that we talked about earlier. Did we share with them early on in life? Did anybody share with them early in life about the beauty in being married? Like what is special about it? What is the hype, if you will, about it? And that is more than just a business arrangement. That is more than just, again, let me find somebody cute to be with. But don't know, this is something that is unique, is special. God created marriage. This is a special thing. This is not to just be taken lightly. It's just something casually that you do. And that if you have the opportunity, if you're blessed enough to find that special one and to enter into that marriage, know that, hey, you want this thing to last and you want to give it your all. But as we've been talking about all along, it's hard to do that if I don't know, if I haven't been
It's
educated, if you will.
impossible. It's impossible.
So
It's nearly impossible. And I'm glad you brought up the point of, the community involvement in marriages. I've read some research a while back, and one of the biggest defining occurrences that marks people stand together is the person that they go to, your parents, your best friend. Do they send you back to your spouse? Do they hear you and say, yeah, I know that's difficult. You might want to try this, talk about this, read this, pray about this, and you go back and keep trying. And that right there, that encouragement to persist
you
in
need that.
anything, NBA, NFL, DBA, any of the acronyms you want to have, um, that ability to persist and send that person back to, barring abusive situations, obviously, but understanding that that's part of it and you're okay, you're ready for it. You guys will figure it out. It may take you a little while. Don't hold it against them. Give them some grace, but you get back in there.
So true.
That right there is a lot of, we
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot of, sitting around that you don't have it.
yeah. If
We
the only
don't,
male
do we
person
do
I
that?
have to go to, if I'm having some issues in my marriage, if the only male friends that I have are the ones who are going to tell me, well, man, we just need to get out and go, go hit this club, man. You just need to meet you somebody, and get your mind off things. That's not what I need to hear right now. Or you don't, on the female end, girl, you just need to go out. I know this brother. No, I need you to be like encouraging me. I need you to be pouring into me and helping me to process this thing, helping me to see
Mhm.
clearly about this thing and go back and work on my marriage, not go and look for alternatives that are going to open up pathways that are going to be in contrast to, in conflict with what I'm trying to do in my marriage. If you're encouraging me to hit the streets
Mhm.
and be with people, you encouraging me to even if you're encouraging me to go back and say some things that are going to be hurtful that I can't take back, you know, I don't need that. So that's why it's so critical.
Yeah,
Like
that
it's been saying,
counsel.
yeah, that council, that community, and then of course we know a lot of times we're talking about it more these days, but of course if necessary in your marriages, don't be afraid of counsel in terms of therapy. Because again, we were growing up, therapy was a taboo word. That was for crazy people. That was we don't do that kind of stuff. But there are people who are trained up and capable of having those conversations with you. I don't think you can just go to any therapist. You should do your homework, do your research, and find someone who's going to be in alignment with understanding the dynamics of the type of marriage that you're in. And of course, as a believer, I think it's important that you have somebody that's Christian based. For those of you who are believers, I would encourage that, because again, they're not going to just give you the book answers that they learned in school. They're going to give you, some biblical foundation in their advisement that they're giving to you. That these are the things that we need: that support, that accountability, that That one again, that brother who's gonna check me when I'm out of line. That sister who's gonna check you. You girl, you wrong for that. When you say I told him, you shouldn't have did that. That's disrespectful,
You shouldn't have
sir.
did
You
that.
shouldn't have did that.
Look, you better whatever you
That's
got
your
to do to make up. You better
you need
make
to
up
make
because
that
you
up.
wrong.
But we need people that around us that say that to us, that encourage us. Now there's sometimes, in all honesty, that sometimes all the work is done, all the efforts are exhausted, and sometimes marriages just don't work. And that's just sometimes that just happens. But if you run into that situation, if that's what you've done and you've arrived at that point, you at least want to walk away knowing we did everything we could to make this thing work, and it
Right.
just didn't. And even then, we can still walk away on good terms, not being disrespectful, not being, nasty and ugly to one another. And especially if there's kids involved, let us be a positive example to them, letting them know, hey, these things sometimes happen, but guess what? We're still a family. We're just kind of doing it from a different. We're having to do it from a different angle because we're no longer going to be married anymore. So, but again, that love is still there, that respect is still there, and we want to acknowledge that and maintain that. I'm not going to deny you, my children, from having their relationship with their father or their mother, whatever the situation is. I'm not going to talk ugly about the other one in your presence or anything like that. No, we are still a family. We're going to still be respectful. We've gone through this event. It's unfortunate. We're sad about it, but we're going to be okay. We're going to draw some positive out of this. We're going to draw that joy out of it, and we're going to still be all right. So this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
very important. One of the listening to you, um, I was talking to somebody recently, and when you think about, marriage, the first intercession that we had from God was what? Adam getting a wife. The garden was already done. Adam was there. Everything's cool. The first intercession was a wife. Period. Point blank. Now, did it go a little bit awry from there? Sure. But that's the importance of having someone and being able to kind of build and do and listen to each other and respect each other. Um, and when you talk about, the Great Commission, um, what better way to provide people to go and spread the gospel than through your children who have
mm,
grown up in a way and who are versed in a way, who have the spirit of Jesus and who proclaim and his word and have seen it and experienced it lived out in a household. For me, it's not about missionary work. I mean, it can be, don't get me wrong, if you're a missionary. I'm not saying it's bad,
right.
but naturally raising up children to be Christian children and to go out and marry somebody and make more Christian children, spiritual children, however you want to look at it. But understanding who you are and in Christ Jesus and understanding um, what your gifts are and how you intend to give them is one of those things that's just a great it's a great feeling, and it's a great thing, I think, for us to as parents focus on. Like, and it doesn't matter what age our children are, even into their 20s, having those conversations about their attitudes and spirits and affinity of finding someone that is that they can respect and that they can see Christ in, um, and they can build a family together. Is one of those things. The other point I wanted to make was, I believe in therapy, but I don't think it should be the first stop. Um, if we're having problems, the one thing I've seen, I went to therapy once, but what I've seen in my situation and with others, a lot of times we hand over our power and the power that we can receive through intuition from the Holy Spirit. We hand that over and we give that power to our therapist. If we were to read and meditate on reading and read with my partner and have discussions, and we can, we can grow together. We don't have to have someone put their soil in here. We're going to till our own soil, and we're going to come up with what we can do and what works and what doesn't work. And we're accountable to each other. There was a book, I think it was called Love Dare. And it's like 40 days that you do certain things with your partner. And over that time, you're building trust, you're building communication, you're building faithfulness to work it out. You're building problem resolution. Like, you're building so many things. You're building active listening with your partner. Get a book that you both can agree on and go through it. Like, there's several of them. There's one by Pastor Franklin Jentison that's called Love Like You've Never Been Hurt. Read it together and talk about it. Mm-hmm. There's so many, whether it's a Christian-based book written by a pastor or not. David Dita has a book, The Way of the Superior Man. If you feel like, as a man, she just not respecting my leadership, like she won't let me do nothing, like it's some, we bumping heads too much. Read a book together. Lead her in reading a book. And you all have conversations about it. And I guarantee you, it may be more time consuming. It may be, it will bring to light conversations that you maybe need to haven't had, forgot that you had. It allows you to share a priority together. It allows you to be on one accord and move forward together. And practicing that just with a book is so powerful, because you're able to meditate on it. You're able to pray on it. You're able to to go, day after day with the same focus in one motion together. Now, if that don't work, go to therapy.
But no, you make
and if you're
point.
In a situation that's, if you're in a, and again, if you're in a situation that's tumultuous and abusive or whatever, you may need to stop at therapy first. But, don't put that aside, the reading and study together, whether it's biblical, not biblical, depending on what your issue is. That's just one thing that I'd like to kind of admonish people to think about.
No, you made a very valid point, because again, like you said, there's a lot of different sources out there of reading material, if you will, that you can go through. But of course, the starting point right out the gate, whether you're having challenges in your marriage or not, if you need to know, how to handle a particular situation that's going on with your marriage, obviously one of the greatest books that you can tap into is the Bible. And like you said, that's something that you and your spouse can read together. Let's look up, what does the Bible say about this thing that we're dealing with? What is God's viewpoint on that? You can read that, you can meditate on that, you can have a discussion about it. See, are we understanding what it means? And ask ourselves, honestly, is this what we're doing? Are we in alignment with that? And as you stated, are there other materials outside of the Bible that can be of help, that are in the same, realm of appropriateness and understanding, why we do the things that we do, why we behave the way that we behave? Yes. And you can benefit from those as well. But I agree with you. It's not that you're knocking therapy. You're just saying, before you get ready to just turn over everything to someone else, what have you kind of assessed? What have you done in-house to try to fix, to try to work through, to try to, even, like I said, even if there's nothing going wrong? Because sometimes I think we make that mistake sometimes in our marriage, that we don't ever want to work on our marriages until something wrong has happened, something bad is taking place. Until it's at
critical mass.
When in fact, we should always be actively working on it, regardless of whether or not things are smoothly going along or whether or not we bumping heads right now. That should be an active thing. And if the more active, Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. The more, because if we're actively
The
doing
best
that,
time to
I'm sorry, go
hmm
ahead.
the best time to solve problems is when you don't have one. Just like the best time to find a job is when you still have one.
Right.
Just
Right.
do it. You do a little tweak and you're fine. But you wait till it's all awry,
Yeah.
and it can be more difficult, definitely more challenging.
It's the whole concept of staying armored
Definitely
up.
more challenging.
I'm staying ready. I'm staying prayed up. I'm staying armored up. I'm not waiting for things to go wrong. I'm consistent in my, and this is actually a part of my prayer every day. Is trying to be consistent in my prayer life, trying to be consistent in studying God's word, trying to be consistent in my positioning near God. Figuring that if I do these things every day with consistency, then when the storm hits, regardless of the timing that it hits, regardless of the level of intensity that it hits me with, I'm actually able to withstand the hit because I've been preparing all along. I wasn't waiting until it arrived before I started preparing. Boy, don't wait. They're announcing on the
Right.
news that there's a tornado or a hurricane in the area, and it's a mile away. That's not the time for you to start preparing to board up your house or whatever. You don't want to wait until it's there. You want to be always on guard, understanding that, as they say with storms, you either going through it, you either going into one, you're either in one, or you're getting ready to go up out of the storm. You're in one of those three stages in the storm. You're going to get hit with storms at some point. If not now, then later. It's not a matter of if, but when. So what are you doing to
Hmm.
prepare yourself? So all of this whole conversation that we've been having is about, again, going back to that preparation and going back to that community, and making sure your support systems are in place, doing everything that you can to protect what is otherwise a very valuable thing that you have in your life, a very valuable relationship when we talk about marriages. So again, yes, marriages do break up, marriages do falter. We are imperfect people, and sometimes it happens. But I think we could have a better success rate, if you will, in the survival of our marriages if we were doing more of the things that you and I have been talking about for some time here. If we did a better job at that, I think more of our marriages would be able to stand the test of time. We'll be able to withstand some of those storms and everything that are coming our way, and we won't be so quick. Like right now, like I said, people will get married and get divorced, at the drop of a hat and think nothing about it. And so it's for us to be so casual with such a special gift. We gotta figure out a way to break that cycle. And so the things that we've been talking about, I think, are excellent things that that we need to keep in mind for my listeners. For those of you, again, that if you're already married or you're thinking about getting married, these are some things that we can perhaps benefit from. And that's, again, another example of how, even for you and I both have gone through divorces, you can learn from your storms. You can learn, you can glean from some of that stuff, to where, if you had a chance to get married again, like you and I both have, um you kind of do things better the next go around, and you get to be that living example for other people who are observing you and wondering how you did, and may even come up to
Hmm.
you and ask you, how do you do it? How do you hang in there? Because you never know who's watching you. You never know who's paying attention to you. So
Right.
you got to always keep that in mind as well, and be ready to share. That's why we're doing what we're doing here on the podcast. We're sharing. We're being transparent. We're being open and just sharing and saying, hey, I ain't perfect. I done messed up. I done did some things I wish I wouldn't have done. I could take back and all of that. But guess what? I'm okay. I still have joy. I can still learn from those experiences, and I can still be all right. So that's the message that we're trying to send here. So this is good stuff. This is good stuff. So so Angela, I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, when you do find yourself facing adversity. Obviously, we've been talking about some heavy stuff with divorce and things of that nature, but sometimes it's the heavy stuff that we come across, and sometimes it's just regular day to day type stuff that we deal with. But I am curious to know, what is your process that you like to follow that works kind of best for you whenever you find yourself facing adversity? What is it that you like to do that kind of helps you work through challenging times?
Oh, I just go to sleep. I'm just I'm just kidding. I just go to sleep and hope it'll wake up and be better.
Right.
Right, right. No, I wish it was that easy. I think I've been through enough And I can't even say I've had a troubled life or a tumultuous life, just my perspective on things. But, one thing that stays in my peripheral at all times is that God's will is being done in this, whatever it is. If you believe he's all powerful and you call his name and you found it within your purpose to serve him, then you also have to know that God's will is being done in this. And, it's not something that you want to hear all the time, but it's one of those things that for me, once I reflect on that, it just changes the level. It just changes the level, and so that gives me comfort just to know that, God's will is being done, period. I'm not a person that I don't have to know why. I don't have to know, like I said before, he just changed his mind and decided he wants something else. Okay. God's will is being done. And it's up to me to knowing that, see how can I lend, and um how can I follow through with God's word being done in a way that I show the love that I'm called to show.
Mm.
How, it's not a common thing that when people do things, and people always do things, they cut you off in traffic, they don't say thank you, they don't say excuse me, whatever the case is. But if we get to a point that we are steeped in his will and wanting to do that, at least knowing that his will is happening at this very moment, I can take that and just say, okay, how am I going to add to it? Because I have strengths, I have skills. How am I going to just go ahead and facilitate this so that I can also be a light and just ride the wave of what's happening? Don't
Mm.
fight against it, because you're not going to win. And I think a lot of our therapy and a lot of our internal angst has to do with fighting the will of God. Well, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this job. I don't want to, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't, But if you actually just first thought God's will is being done, how does that change your mindset about all situations and your ability to deal with them? Because he's equipping you. He has equipped you. There is an intuition that you will, once you see things, for me, once I see things that way, there's an intuition that is also given to me. And there's discernment that's also given to me of how to respond, how to be quiet, how to move forward, maybe the next one or two steps. Because I don't know the whole journey. I can hopefully do one or two steps, and then I'll just wait and see what happens. My husband and I moved to Panama, the country. So before, I was a teacher for almost 20 years. During COVID, I was like, child, I got heart problems and asthma. I can't deal with COVID. I can't. That's not something I need to, like, no, that's not for me. I don't want it. So I'm already knowing, like my health issues, this is not for me. So along with the fact that we had already kind of set up our finances for me to retire early, COVID hit and it was like, oh, it's a done deal for real. So at that point, I've stopped working. And we had the plan of moving overseas, and we had visited Panama a number of times. And so that became our singular focus, is moving to Panama and having property there, and living there the majority of the time and visiting the U.S. And so we did that. We did that in 2022. through situations that um, there's nothing like an American who thinks they can move to a third world country and be fine. Like there's a big, a large, God's just laughing at these plans. Um, but it's just a world away. Like it's just very different. Moving to a lot of people are becoming expats to Ghana and um, different African nations. Um, and it's just a very different world. So things happened, um, and we ended up back here. And so even with that, like it, you're upset for a little while, but you're like, okay, God's will is being done in this.
Hmm.
What is it that I need to be doing while I'm here? Well, my mom is here. I can spend time with her. We have a unique opportunity that, now 4 years after COVID, the initial upset of COVID, I'm like, okay, I can go back into a school. Like I can be of help to younger students again, and it's just a different mindset. But if I decided that, you know what, I'm supposed to be in Panama, I don't like it here, I don't want to be here, especially not during election season. Oh my gosh, I can't deal with it. My whole, like, how is God to work through that? Because I'm working against his will. If I believe he allows everything and anything, and it's all going to work out for me, who's relying on him, I have to soften my stance and realize whether it's my husband wanting him to clean up something, whether it's my children and my son who needs to call me more often, or it's my daughter or anything, I have to know that it's God's will. And for me, that just offers a great amount of peace. And then it also allows me to have a different sort of confidence, not in my own strength, but in his strength to be able to support me as I support these other people. So for me, I think that is kind of the biggest thing that guides me as things come and things go, and just trying not to minding my voice. It's very easy to be a complainer in these days and times.
Hmm.
Um, and so just, there's a lot of times that I just feel like I'm just not watching the news. I can't do it. Like, I just can't do it. And just, making sure that what's coming in to my spirit and what's coming into my brain and what I'm reading or whatever is something that's edifying. Is something that is going to either calm me or teach me something. It's not just wasted, nor is it negative.
Hmm.
And so those having that mindset and being intentional about that is also very helpful. Um, I do a lot of reading. So,
That's great. That's great.
yeah.
I love your perspective, and again the emphasis on, God's will, because like you said, whatever storms come our way, they can't come our way unless God allows them to. And if he's allowing them to, then you have to understand that he
Is it
has a
really a
purpose in
storm?
it. It's not there to hurt you. It's not there to take you out.
Right.
There's something that you're supposed to get from this. It may not always feel good. The timing may not always feel right, but there's something that I'm supposed to have in this moment, something that I'm supposed to learn, something that is supposed to redirect me, if you will, to where it is that he's trying to send me to. And like you said, if I allow his will to be done and I don't fight it, I don't try to alter it, try to make it fit my way and just let it happen, and I'm trusting him along the way, then anytime I know, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, anytime that I've done that, it's always worked out. When I've tried to adjust
It
his
works out.
plans and modify it and all of that, then I've created problems that didn't even have to arise because I'm messing with something that was already perfected when it came my way. I just had to let it. I just had to
Hmm.
let go and let God. Follow His lead, not asking Him to follow my lead. Follow His lead. So that's good. I love your approach on that. So
Yeah, and the timing is right. You know, the timing is right. For so, so many ways, and I guess it's just the folly of man to believe that we are controlling these certain things. Especially I think men have a very difficult time because me, like I, as a woman, we already know the certain things are just like not in our favor. Like we just know that we're not stronger. We just know that, this and that. And we grow up knowing that in the back of our head. Now we can fight it and we can make advances towards it, but I'll never be strong as you. Like in an arm wrestle, I'm not going to win. Like it's just fine. But I don't think men, by and large, I think it's more difficult for you all to really um, grasp that because you're used to bending things to your will. That is what you are called to do as a provider and a protector and those sorts of things. So, so it can be difficult. It can be difficult to see things that way
Yeah,
for sure.
I would agree. The bending things to our will, and then just even and even bigger than that is just being willing to open ourselves up to say, "Hey, I'm hurting. I need help. I need somebody to come alongside me." Because again, growing up, you know, you were taught that that was a sign of weakness. That was a sign you weren't being a man if if you shed tears. You're not being a man if you express emotions and feelings and things of that nature. And so a lot of men have held those things in for years and they're hurting inside and it's affecting their relationships, it's affecting their health, all type of things. So just knowing and being a man and being able to have a space where you can release that you have other men around you that that don't make you feel inferior or make you feel some kind of way because you have some things to get off your chest. You have some feelings, some emotions that you want to release, some hurt, some pain. So men have to have that space, and it helps them to be healthier, mentally, emotionally, physically,
Mhm.
and spiritually, to be able to do that. So those are all great points that you brought up there. So Angela, if you
Yeah, I'm
had a,
very
I'm sorry.
thankful to podcasters.
Oh, no, I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
I said I'm very thankful to male podcasters like
Hmm.
yourself who are doing that in the space and normalizing those types of things. Like it's for me as a former teacher and parent to 20 somethings. I'm just thankful. Like I'm for me, this is a great time. Like it's
Hmm.
it's a
I
great
agree.
time to see podcasters and a lot of men stepping up um, to create spaces where men talk, especially when they're talking like they got some sense. There's a better way to say that when they're giving value to the young people. How about
Yes,
that?
giving value. That's key. That is key. So, Angela, if you had a chance to speak to the younger Angela, if you could sit across the table from her, knowing all the experiences and things that you've encountered over life, lessons learned, and things of that nature, what would be your words of advice, a few words of advice, a few words of encouragement that you would have for her that you believe had she known some of this stuff, had she had this kind of mindset, it might have made life go a little bit smoother. Maybe things wouldn't have been as harsh or rough to deal with had she had this perspective, or even if there's somebody that's listening that's kind of going through some things that you've been able to overcome and get through, but they're stuck. They don't really know how to process dealing with disappointments and letdowns and pain and the frustrations of adversity. What would be your words of encouragement that you would have?
Um, I think a lot of that we've gone over. So just to summarize, um, I think I would say, and I would always admonish people to um, just see Christ and God in everything.
Mhm.
The people that you meet, they're not as bad as what others say. There is a situation where that person is a different person. There is a world and a life where that person is different. And for whatever reason, their light is not shining right now. And so give them some grace. Even in situations, the same thing. Like, this may seem like a tumultuous situation, and it probably isn't what you would have dreamed of. But get to dreaming and get to praying and get to moving in the direction that is worthy of who you are and who you're called to be. And just know that, in whether it's that person that you run into or that situation that you run into, God is there. And if you're open to either reading his word, listening to his word, or hearing from him, it will hopefully soften your heart and allow you the opportunity to move forward in a different way. So that would be the first thing, is just to realize, like, God is there in that situation. Don't take your life. You don't have to cuss them out. You can still, divorce someone and still respond to them in a Christian loving way, or your coworker, or whatever the situation is. I think that is one thing that has made a big difference for me, and just being able to rebound quickly in situations that people do struggle with, and they go to therapy over, and some other things. So for me, that perspective has helped. And I would also say, guard your inputs, what you're putting in. If you're on, like, it's hard to live a life without Instagram and Facebook. I get it. But make sure that in those spaces that you have influences that are going to propel you towards your purpose. Whether that your purpose is family, find some family emphasizing pages that you follow and that you contribute to. If you want to have a certain career, find those spaces that are in the future, that are in line with the purpose and future that you have for yourself. Because your encouragement, it's difficult to always encourage yourself. And if you don't have a squad with you that either believes in your dream or encourages your dream, or even some people have a difficult time just hearing a voice that is encouraging. A lot of us don't even have people around us who encourage us to try that new thing, to create that new, whatever it is, to apply for that new job, to sign up for that class, to create that podcast. Find spaces and encouragement for your soul. Christian, career, character. In those three areas, find things that on social media and books and so forth that encourage your soul. Church programs, if you have a robust church home, a lot of times they will have conferences and so forth that do that. Go out on a limb, go by yourself. I guarantee you, if you smile and meet somebody, I can go anywhere. And we all should be able to go anywhere, smile, and have a conversation, and sit down and learn about the future that you want for yourself. Because God is abundant, and he wants us to live abundant lives. But the key to that is you decide what that looks like, and be very intentional about choosing your abundant life and what that is going to look like for you. I hope it includes marriage. I hope it includes happiness and joy, peace, and definitely moving with a purpose in all of those areas. I think those two things.
Love that. Love that. Very powerful, very well said, and very applicable right now. Anybody tuning in and listening to what you have to say, if these are things that you're not currently living out in your life, these are nuggets you can take right now and begin to apply, and to begin to instantly see some benefits in using these gems, if you will, of knowledge in your respective lives. And I don't think you go wrong with what you've just laid out. So great stuff, great stuff. So Angela,
Yeah,
it has been. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said it, I was really quickly, even if you're like, I'm a parent of 20-year-olds. One of the best things that I've done for my adult children is to read with them. Um, we started, was it during COVID? We started, I can't remember, but that's irrelevant. So my son was going through something. And so I caught wind of it. And so I was like, oh, he needs something. And I don't know what it is because I'm not a man and I don't know what conversations he's supposed to be having. But something is not right because he's this way. And so I took it upon myself to find a book. And my daughter engaged with it and he engaged with it. And we would meet up and we would discuss it. And it was the most powerful thing that I could have ever done, is just meeting with them and still being a presence, even for adult children. Because the world that they're in right now, we haven't seen before.
Mm-mm.
And they're struggling. Many, many of them are struggling, either to find a career footing, to find a relationship footing, recreational time that they have, what are they doing with it? Like all of these things will impact the trajectory, especially of 20-year-olds. Um, there's a um, there's a book called The Defining Decade, and it's designed for 20-year-olds and how and it talks about how valuable that time is and how it should not be wasted, either being coddled by parents or deciding that, you know what, you only live once and I'm young because my auntie and them like this is the best time of your life and you just wasted it. But that is the hustle time. And so me and my kids met up, and the book that we read together is made by David Dita, and it's called The Way of the Superior Man. And it talks about purpose, and it talks about how men um, seek control of themselves and what that looks like, and what it looks like when you're not in control of yourself, and how to get really into being about your purpose in relationships and careers and so forth. And it was really a good book for my daughter as well, because you want to marry a man of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Back to our conversation before, when you talk about those different cultures, I want her to marry a man of purpose. I want her to marry a man who has certain qualities that complement hers, as well as leadership and so forth. So it was just a very good read. And so you're never, as a parent, you're never, like, the onus is on us to teach the next generation. It has been that way and it will always be that way. So even the 20-year-olds, they can use our wisdom, spiritual, career, and relationship. Our mentorship doesn't end.
That's beautiful. It's all about being a presence, and that's exactly what you're exhibiting there. Being a presence makes all the world of difference for those who are close to you, as well as, again, total strangers, even that God is steering you to connect with,
Put
to
in your pathway.
that He puts in your pathway, that you don't know that you're going to meet this man or this woman that is needing to, again, hear your story, gain some of your pouring into them as God would lead you to do. And again, that's part of the reason why we go through some of our experiences that we go through. It was never even about us. You went through it because to prepare you to be able to help somebody else. So just even keeping that in
Right.
mind is critical as well. So So, Angela,
Right.
it has been an absolute
Okay.
pleasure talking to you, hearing your journey, your story. What a wonderful conversation this has been. Appreciate your transparency, your willingness to just be open and just dropping gems on things that we can definitely use in our respective lives, apply right away. Just some really meaningful conversations and dialogue that we've had this evening, and I'm so thankful that I had the privilege of having you on the show. And I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed. So it has definitely been a pleasure. But before I let you go, as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we do want to take an opportunity to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to uplift you. So if you got anything exciting that's either going on right now or coming up that you'd like to share with us, personally or professionally, please do share that with us. We want to know what's coming up for Angela. What you got going on that we need to know about, get connected with, support, or just pray about for you. What is it that you got going on that we need to know about?
Well, I am glad you asked because I always have something going on. I've come to the realization that I'm one of those people that just doesn't stop. Like I just don't just do nothing because I'll even be
Mm,
watching a movie and just be on my computer researching or something. So, over the last couple of years, I have written a book and 3 workbooks. As a previous teacher and also being so laying on my heart to be an advocate for the young adults, many of the comments and things that have come up in our conversation has been about, really getting these young people on, helping them if they're open to be helped. Like I feel like it's our job to help them, because if I were 20 in 2024, I don't know what I would do. Like, can you imagine
no,
being 20 something in these days and times?
totally different.
So they need our help and they need our guidance, more so than I think. It used to be that roles and careers were very much um, laid out for you. Your role as a man, your career, some of those things were so laid out. Nowadays, it is not the case. So I've written 2 books. I mentioned a few minutes ago this book called The Way of the Superior Man.
Hmm.
When my son and daughter went through it, what I ended up doing was creating workbooks. So the blue one is the men's workbook,
Hmm.
and then the orange one is the women's workbook.
Okay.
Um, if you have if you have a relationship with your children such that they will meet up with you and have discussions, it is an amazing thing for 20-year-olds to do that. Just because you don't, I didn't know the gaps that they had in their relationships and their thinking. Because as a parent, and especially as a teacher, I felt like, I'm very intentional about conversations and things to make sure that they're prepared for life. But when they get out there, do they remember? Do they draw on it? And so forth. And so, creating workbooks for young people has, for me, been very fulfilling. This is another one that I mentioned, the defining decade.
Hmm.
And so I wrote a workbook for this one as well. If you have a 20, even if you have a high school student, I would prefer a high school student or somebody graduating from college, whether they're 18 or 23 or whatever. Do they know how to leverage their network? Do they know how to really discern relationships that are good for them and where they're going? These are pitfalls that our children cannot afford to waste the time to experience everything. Experience is the best teacher, sure, but how many years are you set backwards by making mistakes? and by the indecision and not moving because you don't know what to do, or choosing to do something that you wholeheartedly were in favor of, but as a 20-year-old, you just didn't know. Times move so fast these days that any of these advantages that you give a 20-year-old changes their trajectory immensely. And so that's one of the things that my personal children, and then some of their friends, like I'm the community mom. And so, I'm thankful, and I'm very cognizant of my role in doing that. And I hope that I do speak to 20-year-olds and parents of 20-year-olds to hopefully bridge some gaps. This book I actually wrote myself, The Top Shelf Wife, and it goes into what does the Bible say that we are supposed to be doing to be able to prepare for marriage, to be able to nurture and support and be that comforter that we're called to be. So this book, it's really things that I have over the years kind of mentored my daughter about, as well as things that I've learned looking retrospectively at my relationships, and like, what are things that I needed to know? And so I looked in the Bible to figure out, like, what are we called to do? And when I researched Mary Magdalene, Hannah, Ruth, Deborah, and I researched Michelle Obama and Barack, or Angela Bassett and Courtney Vance. Relationships, just like financial wealth leaves crumbs, it leaves a trace when you're successful. Relationships are the same way. We have to begin to study those and figure out what makes these relationships work. And no relationship, of course, is perfect, but really understanding and being intentional about teaching ourselves and our daughters and our sons what to look for. Like, I recommend men read it. If you are struggling and you always ending up with these women that are crazy, you need to reevaluate what you're assessing your women based on.
True.
And it's something that men don't teach other men. She's nice, she cool, we get along, her body right. That's it's not enough for the spiritual walk that a mom and a wife provides in a household. So those are the things that I'm working on. I'm working on a new book called The Spirit-Led Wife, and it's more biblically based throughout the entire book. This one has references in one chapter specifically, but I also feel like the audience who really is drawn to marriage from a Christian standpoint, where are their materials and how do they move the needle in what they're doing? And sure, prayer has a part, meditation has a part, but can we look in the Bible and look in Scripture and really come up with what we need to be either encouraging our daughters that want marriage, or ourselves in areas of growth? And so that one I just started recently. It's very similar to the Top Shelf Wife. I do have a YouTube that I need some prayer and encouragement, because I do not do a good job. I have not been doing a good job with posting videos and such. So I am going to be posting more. It's the Top Shelf Wife's Table. And it has some information about family, dating, and so forth from just a real perspective, some of it from a Christian perspective. That's pretty much it. I am on Facebook and Instagram with familypathways.books. All of the things that I publish are through that familypathways.books. So that pathways to purpose, love it.
That is so
Love it.
awesome. That is definitely awesome. So again, I am so grateful to have you aboard this evening. I know God is not only is He using you in a mighty way right now, but I'm excited that for what is still in store, whether it's more books, speaking opportunities, or any way in that in the midst of you walking in your purpose that God is intending to use you in. I know it's going to be impactful, life changing. And it's going to be worldwide. It's not going to be something that's going to be small and micro in nature. You got some big things along the way. It's clear that the anointing is all over you, and I'm so happy for what is in store, and I'm definitely going to be keeping watch, checking you out and seeing how God is using you accordingly. And again, for my listeners, please do support. Check out her materials that she has. Some really good stuff. I think a little bit. She's got a little bit for everybody. So you definitely have some options to choose from. So please connect with her. Go on, go to her site, and pick up some stuff. Get that knowledge, because again, we need all the help we can get to strengthen ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Just getting our minds right, getting our perspectives right, especially when we're talking about dealing with the challenges and adversities that life throws at us. We want to be as equipped and ready as we can be, and so any help that we can get, especially when we know it's coming from a positive source, a well thought out source, something that's very relatable and applicable. We definitely want to take advantage of that. So again, we're going to be continue to keep you lifted in prayer, and again, just excited for what is coming ahead in everything that you touch and everything that you do. So that's just some great stuff going on with you right there. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our conversation today, the stories that have been shared, the transparency, the vulnerability, just really just trying to just tap into, the fact that we all go through stuff. We all are going through stuff. We all are dealing with our challenges and our battles and our shortcomings. But guess what? We have a wonderful and awesome God who loves us unconditionally and wants nothing but the best for us. But if you've enjoyed what we're doing here, what this is all about, please subscribe, please share, please comment, please like, because again, this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to uplift, we want to encourage, we want to inform, we want to educate, we want to do everything we can to show you that you're not in this battle of life alone. That even when the storms come your way, even when the obstacles come across your path, it's not the end of your story. It's not the time for you to fall into this pit of depression and loneliness and feeling like that there's no way out. Because again, as we talked about earlier, God's will being done. If those storms have come your way, they've come for a reason. And the reason is nothing about hurting, harming, or destroying you. There's an opportunity. That's exactly how you have to look at it. An opportunity to grow, develop, to stretch yourself, to tap into some of the gifts that are within you that maybe you're not working with like you need to be working with. And God is trying to remind you that, hey, I blessed you and created you to be something special in this life. And I want you to be, as we talked about earlier, live that abundant life. And so, sometimes part of that process means we got to go through some rough patches, some challenges, and that's okay because we know who's in charge. We know who's running the show. And as long as you know that, everything is good to go. And if you don't currently have a relationship with God, today is a mighty fine day to make that decision. And I promise you, and I think Angela would co-sign with me on this, it'll be the best decision that you ever make in life. So with that said,
Cosign.
yes, yes. So with that said, remember here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep pressing forward. Don't give up hope. Don't give up the faith. Believe that there's more in store for you in spite of what's going on in your life, in spite of everything that's happening to you. Just lean and trust in God and understand that He has your best interest at heart. And even when He's asking you to do certain things, go certain directions, even if you don't understand it all, even if it doesn't make sense, follow His lead anyway, because He's never going to lead you astray. He's never going to give you bad advice. His plans are perfect. His plans, the victory is already set aside for you, waiting for you. All you have to do is follow the steps along the way and know that He's with you all along the way. not only for you to be blessed, but to put you in a position to be a blessing to other people. So with that said, you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great time. Have a great evening.